All right, today we're gathering with Matt Anderson, founding partner at Purveyors of Pop, the production company behind Married to Medicine and the Real Housewives of Miami. Matt, I'm so excited to get some time with you outside of Instagram, finally talking face to face. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to gab with you today. So thank you for having me on. I've been a
Likewise.
big follower of
Oh,
yours for
thank
a
you.
while, and I like your sort of pop culture distillation. So I feel like we're going to have a good chat today.
I think so too. So obviously we'll do a lot of Bravo chat, but I was doing some research and I didn't realize how kind of prolific your career was in the MTV days as well, which was for me as a millennial, MTV reality was really formative and very big. And I
Mm,
consider it to be like a very much like an kind of like it whet my appetite, I think, for the Bravo obsession later on. But like that was really big for me, some of that MTV work that you were doing.
I
So
appreciate
first,
it.
I saw that you directed some making the video episodes.
Oh,
What?
yeah.
But I don't know which ones. Which ones kind of stand out from what you were doing back then?
All right. Well, hold on to your wig because we had a pre-conversation before we got on this Zoom, and Gibson was telling me he was a big Britney stan. I did do the Me Against the Music video.
Britney
Um,
and Madonna. Oh my
I
God.
know. So for me, like I love Britney,
Yeah.
but Madonna's my queen. So the two of them together was like, and they were shooting it at Silver Cup Studios, which was the Sex and the City
Right.
studio in Queens. So it was just
I've
like
been there.
so many Y2K moments coming together there, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh God, I can't believe we're here. So that was pretty remarkable, and the thing I remember about Brittany, because I had interviewed her a number of times because I worked at MTV News prior to working for
Got it.
MTV Programming and Development. And so, right when she came out, MTV News was all over her. So I'd interviewed her a couple of times, never forgot who I was every time I saw her. And, celebrities get the amnesia real quick, and that's okay. I accept that. Like they have to preserve their energy in a certain way. But she was I introduced myself to her again at that video shoot. She's like, I know who you are. Come on. Like really, really sweet. No one in the room with us, just in her trailer doing the interview. She was moving plants around for the background of her shot. Like it was very down home, like not the overmanaged and handled kind of scenario. And even any other time I interviewed her, it was kind of the same way. We did a piece where she was shopping for outfits for the Video Music Awards.
Amazing.
Um, her first Video Music Awards, actually. And so we spent the day in a limousine with me, Serena Altschul, and her. And it was really just the three of us in the limousine going to Todd Oldham, going to Versace, going to Tommy Hilfiger, like to pick out all her outfits. I mean, when I think back on it, I don't talk about it a lot. So I'm so glad you're bringing these memories back. So,
No, of course. I mean that these are the kind of little anecdotes that I'm just like, first of all, you do hear this about her, where it's like
yeah.
that she was this just sweet Southern belle who also, but I also like, did you sense also that she was sort of also kind of driving some of the ship? Because you always hear about Britney that she had some of the vision for a lot of her big moments. Like those were her ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, she was very young, obviously. So I think still unformed as a star. She was a star. Obviously, people are just kind of born that way, I think.
Yeah.
But it still was forming because these are like her first couple of albums, and she's finding her agency there. And even in shopping for the outfits, her people would come meet us at the locations, but we were alone in the limousine. And so once we'd get there, they would kind of be like, how low are those low rise jeans going? And she'd be like, I think they can go a little lower.
Exactly.
I could see her kind of finding her own voice within all of that. So there was some handling, but again, not overhandled at all. Like that became much later. So that was an amazing one. I did Christina Aguilera Dirty. I always loved.
That's a big one. That was a huge, I mean, that was a huge kind of reinvention moment for her too.
Well, can you imagine like having just come off of that debut album, and then I'm here in this like massive warehouse space where she's doing a whole dance sequence with her dancers in a urinal bathroom, and
Right?
her
And then the
manager
boxing, yeah.
coming over to me being like, do you think MTV's gonna play this? And I'm like, Oh yeah, yeah. Just keep going because I was like living for it. Obviously, like I
Of
love Christina
course.
Ricci. I'm like, yes, like let's get dirty. You know, like I was not going to stop whatever was happening there. I think it was good training for my reality roots.
I
Actually,
believe. Well, yeah,
the behavior just play itself out. Like I am
right.
not.
Don't intervene. Don't
Yeah.
intervene. Yeah.
So then we got dirty out of that. I
Yeah.
did Mini Marmalade, which was
Oh
really
God.
incredible.
And the thing is, Matt, it's like again, I think back then, like obviously we didn't have YouTube. You couldn't just like flip on a music video. And so like these were not only were you like dealing with some of the biggest talent in the world, but you were also like kind of putting some of the story behind like a huge reveal. Like the reveal of the Dirty music video was huge. Like that was something that people looked forward to. People would, sit down in the front of their couches at 9 p.m. waiting for that countdown at the end of the episode to see the music video. Like those were genuinely really important moments for some of the biggest stars of that time.
It was incredible to have a front row seat to that, to be honest with you. And not only to see the artist, but for me as a director and a producer or whatever, I was staring at the video director the whole time. I was like, what is he doing? What cameras is he using? How is he pulling off this special effect? Like, how are they going to audience replace everyone in this Enrique Iglesias video to make this like empty place look like a full place? I
Right.
mean, it was fascinating. And it was like Joseph Kahn and Paul
Mm-hmm.
Hunter and Dave Myers. I mean, they were like
They
doing
cut their
everything.
teeth.
And
Yeah.
they were really brilliant. And then it was so cool for me to get to go to the editing room, when they finally finished the video and they get to present it. I mean, it was really one of those great, great experiences. But it was like a marathon because we would get there from first call to last call every day. So for 3 days, you were just in so much overtime. Like we would do like
Mm-hmm.
16-hour days,
Wow.
18, 19. The best one probably was the Mariah Carey videos that I would do because, she says herself that she doesn't wear a watch because like time is
She
irrelevant.
doesn't believe in time. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So that played out there, and people would get so frustrated with it. And I think oftentimes I was hired to do that one because I just understood that divas are special creatures that are on the earth. And so sometimes you just have to wait 6 hours for them, and that's okay. So that
And
was
it's funny because that's playing out on Real Housewives of Miami this season. Is tardiness is a huge storyline right now. So
it very much is. It very
the
much
through
is.
lines are, but the through lines are there in your career for sure.
Totally. And it can be frustrating, but sometimes the thing that's frustrating can be the great story. So,
Mm-hmm.
as producers, we cannot control everything. And so sometimes the things that we plan to shoot in a week get sort of turned upside down. And I'm always like, all right, well, let's go with the reality of that and see what happens. We're not going to have every person at this group event, but maybe that's going to create a ripple or something that we don't anticipate or know about. And so you have to have the patience for that. And I think developing a patience and an ability to listen to what's happening around me has been a hallmark of my career.
I totally believe that. So the other MTV shows that I saw that you worked on, Newlyweds, Ashlee Simpson Show, Rich Girls. First of all, we don't have to spend too much time on it, but Rich Girls to me is a show that I don't think gets its due. I think about that show all the time, and it's just
That I'm so glad. I love that show. And to be honest with you, Rich Girls really set me up to do Real Housewives of New York. And I'm
in
not
what
even
way?
because reality was still coming into its own at that point. Shooting in New York is a very specific thing. A lot of challenges. You have to kind of know your way around the city. You have to understand sort of the social strata of the city, all of that. And I had lived in New York, but shooting that show and sort of following those rich girls around those elite areas, because we shot in the Hamptons, we shot,
Oh yeah.
We flew private to
You
Europe,
shot in Nantucket where I am right now. I'm in Nantucket where you shot at the Tommy Hilfiger house.
which is an incredible house, by the way.
Yes.
And, so it was really incredible so I was doing cast trips, I was doing all this stuff that was preparing me for like my housewife career. And those girls were incredible to work with, and it was a very pure environment. We did not script anything, and that was kind of that came out at the same time as Simple Life, which was a totally different concept, but the
Back to
media
same
saw it,
edge.
oh, it's two rich girls, what set from LA, set from New York. It's kind of the same thing, but it wasn't. And I think that the thing with Rich Girls is that it was really hilariously funny, which is something that I try to bring into everything that I do as a producer. But it did, in a way, set me up for Real
So
Housewives of Miami.
interesting. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. And then the Ashlee Simpson show and the Newlyweds sort of back to back. Well, first it was Newlyweds and the Ashlee Simpson show. That must have been, what do you say? What do you
So
say?
that's an interesting story because Newlyweds was produced by a set of producers in season one. And there was sort of the thought of maybe making a change for season two. And so I was sort of tapped to do that. And it was very specific with Nick and Jessica. It's such an intimate show. You got to vibe with the people and all of that. And so I went out to Texas to do a couple of shoots with Jessica, and it went really, really well. And, everyone's always on a mic and we're always on a monitor, so you can always hear whatever's going on. Just like, oh, I really like this is going well. I'm like, great, this is going well. Well, turns out Nick was a buddy with one of the other producers that had been on season one, and he really advocated for that. And so what was I going to do? I never even really got to meet him before that. But so MTV was like, oh God, we're going to have to go back with like our original producer. But hey, we have this tape from Jessica's little sister. We shot just 15 minutes. Like, what do you think of it? Like, do you think you could make anything of it? And I saw that 15 minutes and I was like, hell yeah, I can do something with this. Like,
Wow.
I was more excited about that actually, because I love doing season one shows because you can kind of set the pace and the tone and the look and everything. And there was something about it that it was kind of, I think, probably one of those deals initially to sort of get Jessica to sign on for season two of Newlyweds. Was like, we'll do a development deal with your sister. Mm-hmm. Not that Ashlee wasn't talented in her own right. She was, but look, this is how these things happen, and who knows what's going to happen with that project. So I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And at the time, I brought on Nate Green, who is now my partner,
right,
in Pop. At that time, he was a producer, and we were just buddies, and we wanted to work on every show together because we were friends. And I'm like, hey, you got to come and work on this with me. And we ended up shooting for, which is unheard of now, for 6 months on that project, like 6 to 7 months. And we shot up to the week that her album was released. Like, that was the last episode. We were like editing that episode for the next week's air, which I thought was really cool because I think as an audience member, they felt like really part of the whole Ashlee Simpson rollout. And I think that's why the album debuted at number 1. They sold out of the records the first week because the record company had no idea how much this show was connecting with the audience. And believe me, to have a front row seat to like that process of making the album, meeting John Shanks, who was an incredible producer. She was recording at A&M Studios, which is where John Mayer owns that now, but it is where they, recorded We Are the World, so many iconic things. Right. I'm such a music head. And at one point during that period, I was going to the studio to like pick up some tapes of some advances that they had done with Ashlee. And who is in the fucking studio but one Kelly Clarkson recording Breakaway? And I'm
wow.
And he called me, he's like, because I'd been talking about American Idol and Kelly Clarkson the whole time.
The biggest thing in the world at that point. Yeah.
And he had just gotten the gig. So he called me. He's like, hey, if you pick up the Ashlee thing, you know who's in the studio with me right now, Kelly Clarkson. I'm like, I'm going there. I'm not sending the PA. Like, I screeched down Santa Monica Boulevard, got there, sat in the studio while she recorded that song, all in one day. She did all her background vocals, everything. I mean, just to be in the front row for that. And
major.
Exactly who you think she was. She's like, hey, how are you? I'm Kelly. What are you doing this weekend? Like, sweet as a doll. But it's just to hear that voice unadorned and like doing harmonies. And like even the producer, John, and his engineer, they're like, do you want to take a break, Kelly? She's like, nope, I'm going to do all the harmonies right now. And then she would do it. They're like, oh my God, this girl is like a machine.
A total pro. Yeah. And I feel like with you touched on this, but with the show with Ashlee, it's like that. I believe that's also why she became a star. Like, she was the spunky younger sister, but like, I remember hearing some of the songs sort of like for the first time on the show. And then I was really excited to download the album on iTunes. And just like, that whole thing kind of was a perfect storm. And then Was the SNL thing that first season, or was it the next? No.
That was season two. That was
Okay.
season.
Okay. But like, and I'm curious about that because again, that's been like relitigated a million times. But I'm curious for you as a producer, where it's like Housewives now, we have these, I call them like sort of ripped from the headlines moments where it's like there's a
Yeah.
moment that happens. It's sort of what the Kardashians did with Keeping Up towards the end there. It's like we want to see the behind the scenes, we want to see what really led to it, or sort of, but as a producer, you have to tell that story in a way that's obviously like,
Yeah.
sympathetic
That
to
was
the subject, and that's just a really hard thing to navigate. And so that must have set you up also for some of the big Housewives moments too, to be able to tell a story like that, you know?
it's interesting to talk about the second part first about Housewives and rip from the headlines. That was an evolution. We did not do that in season 2 or 3 because they really wanted to keep the Housewives in their own world and
Right.
not as media personalities. And it was sort of a push and pull about like, do we cover what they're saying in the New York Post or do we not? And I think it's good that it evolved there. But that was very much against their instincts initially. But I say that, but then I produced season 2, and like I think one of the first shots is the New York Post landing in front of Jill Zarin's house with everything.
Well, because they would talk about the press and the Post and the
Yeah, and I was like, we got to do this,
yeah,
like, and I
you
think
have
that's a
to.
good thing for Housewives.
Me too.
But in terms of the Ashlee thing, like that was really, I was surprised that that had happened because I was at all of the SNL rehearsals and even the pre-rehearsals where she was doing everything live. Like she knew it
Mm,
was a big deal. She had never lip synced before, and I felt like she got a really bad shake of that, and she paid for a lot of other artists' sins. Like everyone knew that there was lip syncing going on, there was stuff going on, and hers just went so wrong that she got hung out to dry for everything. And she
yeah,
could sing. Like that was
yeah.
the frustrating thing. Like I
It,
sat in the studio with her, I saw her, I was like, "You can sing."
yeah,
Like,
it
what do
might
you?
as well have been happening to Britney, who was the big one who always got like accused of that and was doing that a lot. But like she don't, you're right. It almost was like the wrath of the built
It
up
was all
wrath.
together. And then I think the handling after, because no one had ever been through a scandal like that, there was
Hmm.
like a lot of different sort of versions of the story till we got to the real story. And that was always my thing. I'm like, we just got to get to the real story, guys. We got to get to
Right.
like what happened so we can
Totally.
move. And it was really a devastating thing for her. And it was hard to be there for that.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it
sure.
real broke her confidence. And
Yeah.
it was too bad because the career was on such a trajectory at that point, and then like there was all that muck she had to get out from under after that.
Hmm.
And I feel like someone could have gotten through that easier nowadays than then.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you around this time you jump to Bravo and you start doing you do
Yes.
early New York, early Atlanta, you do the Bethany spinoffs. Were you so this is before Purveyors of Pop, so you're actually at Bravo kind of developing some of these?
Well, it was I was working at MTV and I was
Okay.
coming to the end of my time there. I could feel it. And my ethos as a producer is always like, I want to produce something that I would watch. And the programming was very much changing at MTV at that time. So that's fine. That happens. And I just started watching Project Runway and Workout. And I was like, oh, these shows are so good. Like, I know
Uh-huh.
I can do something like this, and it was for a little bit of a older audience. And it
Hmm.
was just where I knew I wanted to be. And so I was in the process of developing 16 and Pregnant, eek.
I
So
didn't know. Okay, interesting.
yeah, that was just an idea on a title, and a development executive at MTV just kind of shouted it to me in an elevator and said, go develop it. So, I started developing that. I did the first couple rounds of casting for the first season. And, truth be told, that is a very hard casting because the girls that you're meeting that are pregnant, it's incredibly sad. It's a
Hmm.
little dark. I think I did a good job of like sort of setting up the foundation for that. But
Totally.
then I got a call from my agent at the same time. They're like, there's this production company that wants to meet with you on Real Housewives of New York. And I'd already been watching Orange County, and loving it also.
Of course.
It's like, I think I need to go in for this interview. And it was really like kind of like, should I, shouldn't I? And there was just something that day. I'm like, I'm going to go in for the interview. So I went in, I met with Jen O'Connell, who was like the head of Shed at that time. It was called Ricochet, I think, and then it became Shed. And we had a great time together. I really liked her. I liked the show. And I was like, I think I could do this. And I'd lived in New York and I'd done Rich Girl. So I was like, I know I can do this. So I ended up like, yeah, just getting the gig as a freelancer, because that's how showrunners are typically hired, through the production company as freelancers. And then, you know, you have to go through an interview process with Bravo or whatever, but they didn't have in-house producers at Bravo the way they had in-house producers at MTV. So yeah, that's how I started with that. And New York season 2 went really well. So immediately my executive over at Bravo was like, I need you to go meet with True to talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta, because we just had a great first season, but we want to elevate the look and the storytelling. And, you know, I guess they had liked what I did with season 2 of New York.
Clearly.
And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And, you know, I had watched Atlanta. I was like, wow, that is like a totally different flavor of TV, but I'm into it.
Yeah.
But can you imagine coming from, you know, having watched season 2 of New York into season 2 of Atlanta and having the first week's shooting be the scene with Sheree, Kim, and Nene outside the restaurant.
And Michael Lohan
coming in and Sheree shifting Kim's wig. And I just remember looking at Nate being like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then the second week of shooting, having like a bunch of producers just break into my office and be like, you need to put this tape in now. That's how long ago it was. It was tape. And I put it in, and it's Sheree meeting with the party planner. And like,
who's going to check me, boo?
You fucking know when those moments happen. I literally stood up on the chair in my office, like watching the raw tape, which is actually kind of insane. Like, you should not be doing that. Could you imagine if that had gotten like,
right?
What would happen to us?
We never would have gotten Who Gonna Check Me Boo.
And then the other time I can clearly remember that happening as a producer, because, you know, as the EP, you're overseeing everything, so you can't be everywhere all at the same time. So there've been a couple times where like the crew comes in and everyone's jazzed up.
They're so
I'm
excited.
like, what? They're like, come. Just look, it's fucking Ramona walking down the runway in the fashion show with the guys. So, you know, I like to think that like everyone that I worked with has really great taste, because these have
clearly
gone on to become like, you are not going to believe this. Can you imagine it being in a work environment and just every day having something like that land on your desk or whatever?
Sounds like heaven.
An exciting time. Like, it
was
so fun.
Yeah. And it's funny because you were sort of, as you said, you were sort of elevating these shows. You were kind of helping to create the DNA of them in a way, and sort of like really bring out what everybody still talks about to this day. And what I think about when you're talking about these early days of New York and Atlanta is you're dealing with some of like the biggest personalities, some of the biggest icons that have ever graced these franchises. I mean, like Nene and Bethany.
I mean, that's not an overstatement. That is not an overstatement.
No, it's not. Like Nene and Bethany, I consider them to be sort of the biggest drivers, sort of cultivators of what Housewives is and became. And I think there are other people that were very important to that, of course, but like,
yeah.
But there was also this delicate balance, I'm sure, from your perspective of like building up these undeniable stars whose personalities have these outsized presences, but also this is an ensemble show. And so it must be a delicate balance for you as a producer who wants to tell all these different stories, weave them all together, but also make sure that like, I don't know, that can't be an easy balance to strike for you.
It's not, but it's also really fun, because, you know, if you have a big bench of people to work with, something is happening in every person's life at a different. And so, yes, like a Nene or the Margarita lady, as she's often referred to in certain circles, like, you know, has a big story. Luann might have something going on across town. Ramona something. Or Sonia, who was just introduced in her first season with us, you know, so it's really exciting, because the natural trajectory of life isn't always exciting every single day. But if you've got your fishing rod in the pond long enough, you're going to catch all those great moments. But to be able to hop from pond to pond to pond to catch those fish is really, it's exciting. It's fun. It's really more logistically a very difficult thing to do. Like when you're scheduling the day, trying to figure out the travel time between each location, how to get in through the doorman, like how long is it going to take you to light something? Are they going to be ready on time? All of those things make it complicated, but it was really fun working with those people because you did know they were stars, but it was also early days. Like you didn't really even know, the margarita lady hadn't even sold her company yet,
Right.
like, which is like sort of the gold standard for like pushing a product on a reality
Of
show and
course.
making a lot of money off of it.
Yeah.
But like that hadn't even happened yet. So there was also a purity to it, I think, that made it really innocent and kind of fun. And I remember Nene calling me up one week and being like, now, Matt, if I turn on all the TVs in my house when this airs this week, are we going to get a better rating? I'm like, turn them all on. Just turn them all on. Like,
Okay, but Atlanta back in the day was getting, I mean, some of those the ratings for Atlanta were through
insane.
the roof. Through the
Yeah.
roof.
Yeah, they were like 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. Like it was crazy. Like the tune in for that. But they were
Right.
on all cylinders. Listen, there's nothing like early Atlanta. Like I even
No,
can
oh my
back
God.
and look at some of those clips and I LOL
It's
laugh.
it, it the some of the funniest TV to exist in the 21st century.
Being able to be there when Phaedra Parks made her TV debut on Bravo. Like that was our season, and it was incredible. And she's pregnant and talking about her due date. And then you have Candy and Kim recording Don't Be Tardy for the Party, which was really my goal for season 2 of Atlanta. I'm not going to
What
lie.
was?
To really see Kim sing because it was all set up in season 1, but you never heard her sing, which is actually kind of brilliant. And when we got into the casting process for season 2, they invited me into that process, which is really nice and probably unusual now for like a freelance showrunner to come in, but it was a much smaller operation
Hmm.
then. So they'd had a bunch of candidates for season 2, and I saw Candy. And having come from MTV and knowing all about the R&B music of the 90s, which was like that was actually my beat at MTV News. So
I
I
love
knew
it.
all the escape songs and everything. I'm like, we need Candy. And I definitely know like a couple of executives at Bravo. They're like, oh, is she a housewife though? Like, is this? I was like, listen, like we gotta lean into the city. This is Atlanta. This is music. Like we need someone who represents that vertical. And like I promise you, this is it. And if we get her, I'm going to get her to record a song with Kim. I promise you. Like, they're going to love each other. I can tell. And so we did that. And, we got to the studio that day. And, Kim was not really wanting to sing. And Candy comes out. She's like, nah. I go, yeah, back in that studio. I'm going to leave for an hour with the crew. I will come back in an hour. You will record something in private, and then we will continue recording. I go, I promise you that's all you need. That's what we did. I mean, you would have thought that Kim had just finished singing an aria when she had gotten out of there. I mean, because this is when we were still doing on the fly interviews. I don't know if you remember
Right.
that. Like
Yeah, yeah. Oh
right
yeah.
after the food,
Oh yeah.
which I frankly miss. I'd love to put a poll up for
I
people to see
agree.
about that. She was crying. She was like in the moment of having just recorded that and feeling herself so hard. And so I really do miss the on the fly interviews. I know that's a different subject, or the one of the
No, but
margarita when she's dressed up like roller girl, like
oh
outside.
yeah. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Or the one where Kim is playing Sheree her music in the car, and then Sheree is like in like that strip mall just being like,
I think we need to bring the OTFs back, the on
I
fly.
think so too.
I think I'm going to try to. What do you think? Do you think I can push that through at the network level?
Here's the thing. I feel like those on the fly interviews, I'm guessing one of the reasons why they maybe took them away, maybe for the elevation of it, but also like they do acknowledge the cameras in a way that Bravo has not wanted to do for so long. And I feel like now that's finally that whatever, I don't know how that all works, but some sort of directive I feel like has maybe been lifted or loosened a little bit in terms of the fourth wall of it all. And to me, those break the fourth wall, but in a way that now might be more welcome than that would have been 10 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it was a little bit for the elevation and sort of keeping the interview looks consistent, which had been a
Yeah.
driver for a while in those early seasons, and really figuring out how to do those has evolved over the years. And so it was probably a little bit of that, but I think you lose a little something because you're not so in the moment. I actually think as a throwback, the audience would probably welcome
I think so
a few
too.
of those. Maybe not like as like a full across the board, every housewife should do it, but maybe if they saw it pop back in, it would create some conversation.
Yeah, and I think that like it would capture maybe some of the big emotion out of I mean, I can imagine like maybe a particularly notable big group event or a big group dinner, and you get sort of the exit interviews while waiting for their Uber or whatever it is. Like that's something that could be really Like I would like it. I vote yes.
Yeah, they're highly comedic. They're in the moment. And I remember one time I was shooting a scene with Nene and Greg where she was discussing trying to find her birth father, and he was really against the idea. And I did an immediate OTF with her after. And it was so raw. And the way she broke down in tears, you know, my heart went out to her and I felt really bad. But there was something really authentic about that emotion that's harder to get when someone's emotion calcifies around an event that they don't like. Some people are better at clicking into those because, as you know, the Housewives interview are always spoken in present tense. And so part of the trick is trying to get them and for them to get back into the flow of the emotion of where they were at that time. And, you know, sometimes these interviews are happening.
Yeah. Months later.
Then.
Yeah. And that must be like, that must be sort of an acquired skill for the talent to really get to that, to be able to really do that. Yeah,
it is. Some are just better than others at it. Am I going too inside baseball for you?
No. Are you kidding me, Matt? Like, this is the kind of stuff that I love.
Okay, I want to make sure you're getting good stuff.
Yeah, of course. So. No. So I wanted to jump. So right now, the Bravo shows that you work on are Married to Medicine and Miami.
Yes.
And Married to Medicine. So I didn't watch that show for a while, but I binged it the first 9 seasons ahead of season, or the first 8 ahead of season 9. I think I binged the whole thing, and I mean it's such a I had always heard that it was so great, but I get so like sort of the idea of having to watch. Yeah, exactly. But I always heard such good things, and
you're like, I don't know if I have 9 seasons.
Exactly. But I'm so glad that I did it for Married to Medicine because it is such a special show in that like. To me, one of the best things about it is how long running the cast has been. I mean, you still have so many people from seasons 1 and 2 still there driving that ship. And I think it's such a testament to the group and such a testament to the show. But as a producer, I'm curious because also I'm curious if at any point that, I don't want to say it holds it back, but like for a show and it has so many of the same characters, is it hard to find new stories? Is it hard to find new people that would work with the group and really kind of be, you know, ingratiated into the group? Because I think of Contessa as somebody who like was added later on and she has been around for 5-6 seasons, however long it's been. And so it's possible, but that has to be really difficult.
It is. It's, you know, it's a sword that cuts both ways, right?
Right.
Because we've seen in Housewives that sometimes a refresh really works. We've also seen the opposite, you know, like, so it's a risk. And so to a degree, I do feel like people should study Married to Medicine. Like, how is it that they are 12 seasons in and they have like 6 OGs on here?
Wild.
You know, like,
Wild.
That's incredible. You know, I went and I did like a little Google search the other day, or Chat GPT search, like a longest running non-Housewives Bravo celebrities. And it's basically like Tom Sandoval, Lisa Vanderpump, and all the Married to Medicine women. You know, like that's...
I believe it.
And then in terms of how they stack up with Housewives, I think there's only like 2 or 3 maybe that are more than them. So I think there's something to be studied because there is a real friendship amongst them. So when the hurts hurt, they really hurt. When the friendship comes together, it feels very authentic, and the audience loves that about Married to Medicine. So I think that's the really positive. They're a really good group in that way because there's just so much history there, and you can't beat that. I hear what you're saying about like sometimes it's good to bring someone new in to freshen it up. It's actually something that, you know, is always on the top of our mind. We do casting every year for Married to Medicine because you never know if you're gonna find someone great. So stay tuned for season 12. You never know what elements might be coming in. So
I'm staying tuned, but it's also I just think it's so fascinating seeing what works and what doesn't work. Sort of in the like, for example, like Phaedra clearly didn't fully click with the cast for sort of a forward thinking kind of way. I think that I actually don't really know why. It's so interesting because I feel like Phaedra pops almost everywhere she is, but for some reason on that show she didn't really pop, and I don't know if it was like an internal thing or what. Do you have a read on that?
Well, I think everyone should thank us because it gave a place for Phaedra to sort of vamp until she got back. I agree. And, you know, no one else would snatch her up off of a network. So there's that. And, you know, she and I had a history from Housewives, actually. Yeah. So I think there was a comfort level I think she was just warming up. That's my take. I think she was very skittish after how things ended on Atlanta for her. And she wanted to come back into the more unstructured docu-reality space. And she was careful about it. And our Married to Medicine women are not careful. They're raw, they're there. And I think that was like a lot to
Yeah.
get into the flow of. And I understand that from her perspective because I think it was a long time off TV. And I think having done Girls Trip and Traders were good 1-2 steps before she got into unstructured reality, because that is a whole different game. Like, you have to open a vein on camera in a different way than you do in a competition. So I think she was just warming up. I wouldn't say that it was that she fully didn't click. I think maybe if we'd had another season or two, it might have been a different thing. But I think Phaedra is home where she belongs. I agree.
I agree with you. Yeah, and again, it did not work. It just, there was
Yeah,
a
I think people
slight,
had high expectations.
a remove maybe. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, have been involved with Miami since season 2,
Yes,
so
sir.
almost at the beginning. And I heard you say to Kate Casey that you really kept in contact with the cast over the years. You would always advocate for you'd remind Andy about it at Married to Medicine reunions and things like
Oh
that.
my
And so,
God.
but you were really doing the work for us. And I just think about that season 4 reboot, and it's like, to me, it couldn't have gone any better. Like, it just, you brought back the right people, you added the right people. It had the Peacock sort of shine to it in a way that it just was sort of new at the time.
Yeah.
Was it just sort of this perfect storm that you feel like you all just really got right when the time came for it to return?
I mean, I love that it looked that way on TV. It was a very hard season to produce, but like, and not because of the women or anything like that. It was just like one of those things. If something could go wrong, it was going to go wrong on production. Like, sometimes you just have those. First of all, that was mid-COVID. And it was in Florida, so they were much looser about their things. But in terms of NBC protocols and all that stuff, it was still very strict. So, people were getting COVID left and right as we were going, and then you have to bench them for a week until they get better. So that already is like stressful because you're trying to like keep up with your production calendar, get everyone on, keep everyone healthy, do all that. So like, just that alone was like a nightmare. Number 2, like, we were shooting it in the dead of summer in Miami because Peacock had a launch date. They're like, we don't care what the high season is. We have a launch date. And we're like, okay, you're right. We're going to do this anyway in the dead of summer. So like, everyone is like sweating, dying. And then there was a lot of pressure to bring it back and get it right. Like, listen, we were the production company that had a Housewives and then it went away. We were not going to be the production company to lose a Housewives twice. It was like late nights, early mornings, like Nate, myself, Maddie, Cooper, like, we were really working around the clock on that particular show. Like, I remember like working through a Christmas, like trying to get like the videos from Alexia getting married to Todd, like in the middle of the night. Like, I wanted to leave no crumbs on the table for that season. And I think that did come across, but it's like one of those things, it was a labor of love. Like,
I believe
there
it.
was like a tiny point during the process where it was like, is this going to happen? Is this going to come together? Which is sometimes the sign of a good show because everyone's putting their like everything into it. And then we a little bit took advantage of the fact that it was on Peacock, because when Nate and I ever approach a project, we're like, okay, well, what's the one thing we can do that's different that no one else has done before? And we're like, let's do the graphics a little different. Let's make the transitions a little different. Let's like hyper up the color a little bit. And so it was a little bit out of the purview of the very strict, this is what a Housewives format is. We did come up against some of it because if you look at the logos, like, they're all supposed to be in white font and then everything else around it. And if you've noticed, ours has like a little neon font that goes in and
It
out.
does.
I just put that in.
I love it.
But now it's like baked in. Like, that
It's
was
so
what
Miami.
I think I called Andy Cohen. I'm like, Andy, what do you think? He goes, I really love it. And so Andy kind of gave me the blessing to go a little rogue. And I know it's just a graphic or whatever, but all of those little things I think make a difference. And I think it's why people looked at the show that first season and thought, I like it. It's Housewives, but they're doing something a little different.
Yeah.
Which is always
Yeah. I believe it. It really felt fresh while also feeling old school. It felt refreshed, I guess, is the way you can say it. Wait, is you mentioned how difficult it is to film in the summer in Miami. Is that part of why this current season wasn't filmed in the summer, where the sort of calendar was changed up?
It's a couple things. It was that, but it was also a programming decision. As I was told, you have to make sure that the bread spreads all the way down the table. And there was a period where all the bread was airing at the same time. Like I think season
I remember that. It was around BravoCon. It was around BravoCon the previous year.
the previous year, like we were airing with Beverly Hills, with Salt Lake, and I think there was like a little bit of Potomac happening, and it was like sort of a logjam of housewives. And I think programming wise, they were like, and then there was like an empty period during the summer. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
They're like, we have to like be smart about how we're programming it out. So it was really more of a programming decision, which I actually think was torturous for the fans and for us, but ultimately worked out because now we're airing at a time where there's only two of us airing right now.
It's
And
helpful. Yeah. 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 So I don't know if you saw, I did an episode recently about sort of there's this perception among like hyper online Housewives fans that like Miami doesn't get the ratings that it deserves, and like not every Housewives fan watches Miami with them, even though they should be. And that kind of just blows my mind because I'm like, I really do believe that Miami and Salt Lake are sort of head and shoulders above the rest right now, just in terms of what is being delivered, in my opinion.
like,
Is that something that you think about as a production as an executive, and like I don't know, like what else can you be doing to connect with fans or get people to kind of catch up on Miami in a way? You know what I mean?
mhm, doing podcasts like these. No, just kidding. Well, first of all, you cannot look at the live ratings anymore. And I know
Yeah,
there's like a real sort of instinct to want to do that, but our streaming and delayed numbers are very, very healthy. They are.
good,
They're right up there with the other housewives. And I don't
good.
think there's enough of that press out there about that.
I agree.
Um, you know, that's the truth. Now, streamers, for many different reasons, don't reveal everything about their ratings, as we know. But I have enough knowledge to know that it is right up there with everything else. So, Housewives of Miami fans, you can breathe easy. We are there. We are in the race. We're doing it. Now, granted, we were off the air for a very long time. And so there is always an aspect. And I heard this, if I'm going to name drop a little, when I was doing an interview with Bono way back in the day with
Uh-huh.
YouTube. He goes, every time we release an album, we have to reapply for the job. It's just the way it goes. And I'm like, every new season, we have to reapply for the job. We just do, because you don't know what that season is. And I remind that to everyone. I go, we got to put everything we have into every season we have. So it was a long time off. I think people are like, oh, yeah, I got to come back to that. It'd been over a year.
Hmm.
So I think there was a little bit of people refamiliarizing themselves with the old stories and getting up. But I think at this point in our season, everyone's kind of caught up. Our ratings are very healthy in the streaming and delayed viewing. So just don't look at those live numbers. I
Yeah.
know they're, gives people a
But they're
little
the only
pop.
ones out there. They're the only ones out there, though. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple miscellaneous production questions. And if you can't answer them, you don't have to. They're sort of more general.
Okay.
And I feel like maybe I've asked you this before, but when a scene makes it into a trailer but doesn't end up in the show,
Oh, it's the worst.
what's the likely explanation for that?
Um, well, the likely explanation is that there was every intention of including that scene, but like as you got into editing, because those trailers, remember, are cut before the first episode even airs.
Right.
We are still editing Miami right now, and we're like 6 seasons
Wow.
in. We're just doing the finale or whatever. So a lot changes in the editing process. And I think in those early days of Housewives, that would happen a lot more. And now I try to be really, really conscious of that because I think the audience feels a little gypped or like, fooled if they don't see what they saw in the trailer. So I really
I,
am trying to conscious, like, this is definitely going to be in the show.
yeah, I agree. I think, and I don't remember it happening for Miami anytime recently, but I feel like in the last couple of years, it's happened kind of a lot for other shows. And I think that the online audience is very perceptive, and when the online audiences figure something out, it gets onto the Instagram pages, and then the more casual viewer might hear about it too. So I feel like it has a trickle down effect. I don't know, it's just that people notice those things. Um, how often, I mean, how long do you spend figuring out the reunion seating chart generally?
Well, I'm like mid contemplation right now with the network of producers for the Miami reunion. It's a lot of thought. It is a lot of thought. You go through the questions, you think about, and I'm primarily thinking about camera angles too, because you're
Hmm.
kind of locked in once everyone's seated, and like, what's your cross coverage going to be? What's the wide shot going to look like? Who do we imagine is going to be interacting with each other the most? All of those things play a role in sort of where the seats fall. But there is something to be said for changing it up and surprising people about
Hmm.
who's sitting next to. But it's a lot of thought, and it goes through many layers of approval before we get there.
Got
So
it.
at the production company level, we put forth our suggestion, and then we send it to the network, and they may have some feedback, and then we may debate it, and then we get into it.
Got it.
But
Got it.
it's
Those are fun conversations, I'm sure.
no, the most fun is when they actually get seated by the stage manager, and like the reality sinks in about
Mm,
where the housewife is sitting. That's always a
mm,
rough morning.
mm.
Sometimes it's rough,
Uh,
sometimes it's not.
yeah. Um, this one is my hunch correct that like again, sometimes not conspiracy theories, but people start to speculate about certain things in the Housewives universe, and
Mhm.
it kind of becomes a little bit like, I don't know, connecting the dots a little bit. But in my hunch, a lot of the explanation for some things are just budget reasons, and like, why is this person this role, or why is this happening, or what is that more often than not the explanation for something that fans might notice?
That can be a explanation. I mean, obviously, it's a business, and there's a
Yeah,
budget for every one of these shows, and you have a certain amount of time to shoot it, certain amount of time to edit it, and those are the realities. Like there are hard costs to producing a show, so that can be a reason. But sometimes there are creative reasons behind decisions about like who's a friend, who's not a friend, or sometimes it's and something being driven by the talent themselves.
mm,
It's many different things. I
yeah,
know where you're going with this question because we have three amazing friends on
yeah.
Miami, and there is a lot of chatter about like
There
they should
is.
be full time, and it's funny to me because well, I love the support that the fans have for those people on the show. Uh, but it's also amusing to me on the level that like whether they're that or not, it doesn't affect your viewing experience at all because we present them very fully as people.
I agree.
They get interviews, they go on all the trips, they sit at the reunion from beginning to end. I think it's season 4 we like brought them out. Season 4 and 5 maybe we brought them out, and now we're just like everyone should be on the couch. Everyone
Right.
was there. So it doesn't affect the viewing experience, but I am, I'm touched that people feel that
Strongly.
invested in sort of all of that. And so I like to call them super friends, not just friends, because they are doing more than I think the average friend on a housewife is typically doing,
I
without a
agree.
question.
I agree. I think the friend role is like kind of like in a fun way, it can be it's sort of a catch-all term at this point. Like it can be what Marisol, Kiki, and Adriana do for Miami, but it can also be what somebody who's essentially a guest of the show could do on another franchise. And I think that
Mhm.
it's kind of, I don't know.
Like a
How,
Kathy Hilton does a great job
totally.
occupying
I
space.
totally agree. And also, it's like if you look at, there are people like Sutton, like Marlo, like people who have ascended from that role, and you never know. You never know how it all is going to shake out. Um, when it comes to confessionals, we talked a little bit about sort of how they approach it, but how long are they sitting in those chairs? I know there's a million different sessions in the season, but what does it take to get what you need to get from the confessionals?
So much, Gibson, so much. It's a lot. Well, it's a lot of glam, obviously, to get there.
I'm sure more so over the years. I'm sure.
Yeah, it really depends. And every production company and producer honestly does it different. There is the theory of like, get them in the chair, keep them there all day. Like, we got so much to cover. there's the theory that you're going to lose them after a few hours because it is really hard work to sit in a chair, talk, 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 talk. So sometimes what people do is they'll do a half day with one, half day with another character,
Got it.
at the break at lunch. And I do think that's kind of the sweet spot for how to do those interviews. And those go on for months. They really
Wow.
do. It's just, you're like I said, we're still editing like our show right now.
I love it.
Filming in December. So, we just did our last round of interviews last month. So that gives you a sense of the expanse of
Definitely.
Definitely what you want to bring to the table in terms of fresh ideas and bites.
Mm-hmm. Last question for you, Matt. We alluded a lot to like sort of online chatter about Housewives, and I personally I'm very involved in that, but I also am very aware of the fact that it doesn't represent like the full viewership. There are plenty of people who watch these shows who don't talk about them online and what have you. But I also think that like part of that there's probably a lot of misconception about what your job is, what production does. What is sort of the biggest or most common misconception that you see that maybe like you get blamed for, generally speaking, as a producer of a show, that you're like, that's not exactly how that works, or like, we're not the ones who make that decision?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest one, just right off the top of my head, and that can be from the casual viewer to even other networks. Like I go in and talk to them and they have their own theories,
Oh, yeah.
They're like, is that we're just going for the fight, that it's just a group of people who are fighting. And that's, the beginning and the end of what Housewives is. And anyone who watches Housewives knows it's so much more. It's an element to it, but it's not just low hanging fruit. Like putting these stories together, getting these people to share their lives, their stories, their husbands, their kids, their dreams, their desires, their work takes so much more work than you would ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that, they think the casual viewer, and sometimes other people think it's scripted, which is wild to me. And my
It bothers me so much too.
It's like, I wish I could tell these women what to do. Like, these are very self-actualized people who have their own perspectives of life, which isn't to say that the people that I work with are totally disrespectful or anarchist or anything like that. It's not that, but it's not scripted. These are their lives. It's a very complicated and painstaking process to get every element that you need to make something humorous, funny, moving, relatable, yet aspirational. And you have to do all those things in a housewife show. And that's really hard. And so my hat goes off really to our showrunners, our producers, the segment producers, the people who clear the locations. You would not believe what hard work that is, because when you're doing a Housewives, part of the responsibility is to show the city. And at least I believe that. And to me, it has to be elite, and it has to be interesting. It has to be something that someone who would come to the city and be like, I want to eat where they ate. And it's the experience that we're showing on camera.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my God.
So it's really much harder than people think. And we're not just going for one thing. Does that answer the question?
Very much so. Very much so. It very much does. Well, Matt, I could have gone for 5 more hours with you, but we'll just have to do it.
Thank you for having
We'll just have to do it again another time. That was really nice, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And again, you've worked on so many things that I personally care about, just like a human being over the years. And so thank you for all the work that you've done to give us these, honestly, so many cultural touchstones of the last 25 years, truly.
Yeah, we'll have to do a Making the Video episode. We didn't even scratch the surface on that. So.
An hour about Britney only. Come on.
Not with you. Come on.
Oh my God. Well, Matt, thanks so much. And we'll chat again soon.
I want to gab.